Nikki nearly dies. Jack removes Nikki's blame. In a burning inferno, Matt was discovered to be unconscious. With whispered betrayals at Newman Enterprises, an unstable truce with Victor that might end at any time, and a secret that only a select few understood, Nikki Newman, brittle with fear, tender with love, and fierce in her own way, had been navigating a new round of family issues. Ever the stoic guardian, who had mastered the art of concealing his hand tremors beneath a businesslike smile, Jack Abbott had been caught in a unique cycle of vulnerability, alternating between dread for Nikki's safety, regret over his actions, and a resolute belief that the past might be paid back with unwavering loyalty. For his own reasons, Matt, a complex and silently tormented wild card, had been circling the Newman/Abbott universe. He had a troubled past when he entered their lives, and despite his best efforts to choose a different course, the ghosts of past choices continued to pull him back. A cigarette thrown into a raw cardboard box outside the Genoa City Athletic Club, a malfunctioning heater at a downtown shop, and a tip from a night shift security who insisted he smelt gas down an alley were just a few of the minor, seemingly unconnected occurrences that had gone unreported. Nothing on its own. An unseen fuse altogether. Nikki had been throwing a small, private supper at the Abbott estate on the night the world changed. It was a subtle attempt at peace and healing between two rival families. Candlelight illuminated the table, and the discourse was measured. Jack leaned close to a fireplace, more for comfort than show. Inside, embers of history continued to blaze, while outside, frost gleamed. Matt was there for a variety of reasons, from duty to interest. Jack tensed as he stood in the doorway and observed Nikki. They couldn't know that fate and chance had already worked together. An ordinary night could turn into a living nightmare due to a maintenance error in the old West Wing, such as a closed door, a frayed wire, or the electrical system of an aging house. The spark, panic in the rooms, smoke in the walls. It began modestly, with a hint of smoke and a subtle scent. One of the lamps flickered. Jack initially thought it was an electrical glitch. Nikki got up to comfort a visitor. However, the wallpaper at the far end of the room started to curl and turn black, like paper, exposed to too much sunshine. There was a shout. The meal descended into mayhem. In certain rooms, the lights went out, while in others, they flashed. The old mansion appeared to spring to life against them, a palimpsest of decades, memories, and secrets. Like a gray ocean rising, smoke rose toward the chandelier. With an unfamiliar grunt, a door slammed shut. Voices rose in the confusion, a glass breaking on a Persian rug that caught the first sparks, a guest calling, a wailing voice. Although Jack's bravery is not new, a crisis sharpens instinct. He moved when he saw Nikki and heard her chuckle turn into a choked cough. The world grew smaller for him. With slow-motion heroics, a chair toppled in the worst possible spot, a blazing curtain, and suddenly a figure in a doorway, Nikki, dazed, her hair slightly burnt, her favorite necklace smoldering at her throat. The rest of the play follows the script to the letter. Jack took hold of her. There were other shocks in the house, though. Heat pockets caused the air to vibrate and melt the world's boundaries as the fire rushed through concealed conduits and flared from an abandoned pile of old files. Smoke unexpectedly choked out exit pathways that should have been unobstructed. The staircase was licked hungrily by flames. Jack's help, pulling Nikki away from the fire. For weeks, the city will discuss Jack's rescue of Nikki. It's both visceral and cinematic. It's more about an elderly man and an elderly love than it is about dancing. He thinks about Nikki instead of being the hero. Her life is saved by her unwavering focus. The world is a white roar as he makes his way to her through the smoke. Like a prayer, he calls her name. She falls into a mantle that wilts in her grasp as she coughs, confused. She falters, a moment when fear can become irreversible. With his hands at her back, Jack gives her support, seemingly bracing not just her body, but also a lifetime of love and remorse. He is unaware that the hem of his suit is catching amber. The scorching sensation in his lungs is not something he considers. He prioritizes the person he loves before himself, as he has always done. His ruthless method of dragging her down the huge staircase, with parts of the banister burning, is reminiscent of an old king's throne room in ruins. It is a symphony of alarms and the moan of wood. A sports car alarm starts its own terrified rhythm outside. Neighbors bash on walls, and someone yells for firefighters. Jack's face is a mask of suffering, tenacity, and determination. Nikki is barely conscious and has her eyes closed. He pushes through a cracked doorway, and the two fall out into the chilly night with soot all over them and hacking coughs. A scene of barely surviving. However, this is not an easy save. Jack's breath is raspy, and he is singed. Nikki is on the verge of leaving. It takes what seems like an age for the sirens to come, and medical help is required. The picture of Jack holding Nikki on the lawn, both of them saved and both of them destroyed, comes to represent their lives as chaotic, volatile, and united by love. Matt in the fire, unconscious. As the drama centers on Nikki and Jack, Matt's story begins to emerge. When the fire spread more quickly than anybody could have predicted, he was somewhere else in the house, close to the east wing, in the service corridors where storage rooms and fuel tanks are located. Fans will debate between two possibilities. Was Matt looking for love? Or was he there because he was drawn into peril by his own demons? Someone, a valet, a staff member, or even Matt himself, saw a shadow in a passage near the wine cellar as the fire spread. At the wrong moment, he had been at the wrong place. He had been discovered by the flames. He was still inside. Later, he was discovered unconscious, slumped against a masonry wall, with his clothes singed and his breathing shallow. The scene where a first responder turns him over and feels for a pulse is almost too dramatic. It is not very strong. He is connected to one of the previous conflicts of the evening by a pocket watch or a piece of paper in his jacket. His presence at the site is a mystery that will require clarification. The difference is striking when the paramedics eventually roll him onto a stretcher and into the same ambulance that is transporting Nikki. Nikki's eyes are glassy and her hair is sprinkled with ash. Matt's face is slack, his mouth open, and his skin burnt in spots. Jack observes, his exhilaration giving way to the horrifying realization that the tranquility of his life and this day will never return. Emergency. ICUs, hospitals, and confessions at 2 a.m. Nikki and Matt land at the same emergency room, but in different rooms. Matt is in a monitored bay where his unconscious body is stabilized, while Nikki is in critical care, closely watched for burns and smoke inhalation. The hospital turns into a miniature version of a soap opera, with family members hovering and exchanging accusations and prayers as doctors speak in condensed medical terminology. Jack is a complete mess. His true occupation is waiting outside Nikki's door, but he does the practical things such as speaking with doctors, conducting police interviews, and attempting to find answers to the unanswerable. Clutching a paper cup of coffee like a lucky charm, he sits in a plastic chair that looks like it might shatter beneath him. Faces come through, including Kyle holding a phone with 1,000 unread messages, Sharon with hand-wringing sorrow, and a weary Victor with the expression of a man who has briefly lost his reign. Matt's past comes to light in the meantime. Who was he with prior to the fire? He was in the service wing. But why? Could something have happened because of his presence? Or was he placed there by someone? The rumor mill churns throughout Genoa City. Accusations are leaked. Was it arson? Was a murmur? Develops into a whole theory. The property is searched by the cops. Experts search for accelerants. An abandoned cigarette near the rear entrance raises suspicions. A burnt matchbook is discovered in a thicket. Motive turns into a map, and the map is filled with paths that lead to resentful people. Confessions at the hospital typically take the form of small remarks, such as a nurse's casual remark about a scared maintenance man who departed without warning, or a visitor's recollection of a heated conversation between Matt and an unidentified person earlier in the evening. Jack, fire it wasn't. I thought. Nikki, sometimes conscious, mumbles half-remembered phrases. Her utterances are shards of dread and remorse, with each syllable turning into a breadcrumb. The inquiry, accidents, arson, and a smoking gun. The fire investigation is slow, technical, and emotionally turbulent, much like a traditional soap opera. Fire marshals conduct interviews with employees and visitors. Arson is a possibility that requires evidence. There is an abundance of evidence in both directions. On one side, the West Wing's defective wiring, an outdated fuse box that ought to have been replaced, indicates a catastrophic mishap. However, the finding of a little canister with accelerant traces suggests that human hands were involved. There is a lot of speculation. Was someone attempting to get rid of a secret? Was Nikki the intended victim? Or was Matt the target? Perhaps because he had something to reveal? There are adversaries in both families. There are members of both families who would benefit from mayhem. An ex-lover's jealousy, Victor's adversaries, or an underappreciated employee harboring resentment all have motivations. Motive is multiplied into a jungle by soap opera logic. There are red herrings. Questions are raised by a burnt photo of Nikki and an unidentified person. Perhaps someone wished to exact revenge on Nikki for a previous betrayal. Perhaps the house's archives contained a nest of secrets that they were attempting to eliminate. Flames are effective at causing pain, so whomever caused it wanted more than simply property damage. Little hints pose a threat to alliances as detectives pursue the trail. Earlier in the day, security footage shows a silhouette that might be Matt or someone wearing his coat passing around the hallways. A contractor who never checked in is listed in a maintenance log. Nikki's phone receives a text message from an unknown number that says, "You will pay for what you did." Fans will devour the suspect list, which might include envious rivals, power-hungry coworkers, a rejected lover, or a desperate stranger. Everybody will have a theory, and the program will reflect each character's dark side by using their theories as mirrors. Fallout, tense relationships, damaged trust. Not everything is resolved by survival. Although Nikki and Jack physically escape the fire, the psychological harm is gradual and subtle. Nikki has nightmares in which she sees faces she cannot identify in the smoke, her childhood house burning, and fire crawling through rooms. She is jittery. She avoids fireplaces, flinches at stoves, and can't go asleep without a lamp on. Jack's protective instincts are heightened to the point of paranoia, and he is constantly on guard, rewiring every wall, placing cameras that feel more like accusations than concern, and enhancing the estate's security are all things he demands. In the same way that untreated wounds develop, Matt's unconsciousness produces questions and hatred. If he regains consciousness, Matt will have to deal with the difficult situation of being both a suspect and a victim. People will wonder why he was present. Social media will turn Matt into a figure of both sympathy and distrust, and the press, which is constantly hungry, will create stories that he will find difficult to deny. The dynamics of Nikki and Jack's relationship change. There will be some touching moments, like when Jack brushes ash out of Nikki's hair, and they both chuckle at life's ridiculousness, something only those who have almost died together can do. However, the trauma also causes fissures. Jack's protective anger becomes oppressive. Nikki's secret knowledge, whatever it was, becomes a source of guilt. Boundaries shift, but friends seek out. As individuals take sides on who is at fault, who is accountable, who is careless, or who is malevolent, long-standing connections change. Meanwhile, there are repercussions for the Abbott and Newman corporations. Newman Enterprises must respond to inquiries on insurance, liability, and leadership stability. As it becomes evident that the estate was a tinderbox, Abbott's reputation is put to the test. Business transactions are delayed, and competitors take advantage. Every emotional earthquake in soap opera land makes business boardrooms tremble, and Genoa City's economy becomes its own plot line. Twists and revelations. Secrets in the ashes. The fire reveals things that sheets paper could never show, and revelations are the lifeblood of soap operas. Investigators discover a small locked safe in the burnt study, and the combination seems to have been altered. Its contents aren't immediately apparent, but they could include documents that could alter everything, such as evidence linking a person to criminal activity, legal documents that reassign inheritances, or a letter disclosing a long-buried affair. Such a revelation would clarify motivation and transform idle suspicions into focused fury. Furthermore, Nikki's murmured statements in the emergency room, Fragments she can't entirely recall might hold the secret. The plot can change if she remembers a name or a face, even in hazy dreams. A backup phone or a receipt might be concealed in Matt's jacket. An unhappy contractor who witnessed a meeting earlier, or a cleaner who claims to have overheard someone debating over finalizing outdated business plans could come forward as a whistleblower. The series will gradually unveil new information, dragging viewers through murky alleys until the true culprit is exposed with terrible narrative weight. Additionally, the culprit won't be the most obvious villain because this is the young and the restless. Anticipate a betrayal from an unexpected source, someone with personal, not just financial motivations. It's possible that the arson was intended to exact retribution for a past injury rather than merely to obtain property. Maybe it was an attempt to remove a paper trail that could have destroyed a life, a ledger. In the worst-case scenario, the arson might have been committed by someone who believed they could manipulate the story and pretend to be a hero in the rescue before being exposed. The long game, retaliation, and redemption. It's a long game in the aftermath. Nikki will need therapy, confession, and the gradual restoration of trust as part of her emotional healing. Jack will have to face not just who ignited the fire, but also why he let some of their weaknesses continue. Being both an accused and an accused in need, Matt will be in a precarious situation that calls for compassion, skepticism, and legal struggle. Lawyers and influential people will negotiate alliances. Lawsuits and restraining orders may be filed. However, justice in soap operas is rarely simple. A character who lost everything due to the fire may seek retribution in ways that exacerbate tragedy. Vengeance will rise like steam. On the other hand, there will be attempts at atonement. In a classic Genoa City moral compromise, someone on the peripheral might admit to concealing evidence or accepting responsibility in order to protect a loved one. Additionally, the show will use the fire to reorient character arcs in a traditional manner. In order to concentrate on her recovery, Nikki might choose to resign from a public position. Jack might use his protective tendencies to push for safety changes throughout the community, or he might intensify his efforts and take on more authority. Matt might confess to something completely different, which would add complexity to the legal story and unexpectedly humanize him. The prolonged unanswered questions, and what supporters will say. Fans will quarrel for weeks. Was the fire intentional or unintentional? Who stood to benefit the most? Was Nikki collateral damage, or was her secret the driving force behind the crime? Was Matt the offender, the victim, or both? Theories about competing executives, rejected lovers, concealed debts, and more will spread over message boards and social media feeds. However, the human core, trauma, and resilience lies beyond the whodunit. The near-death experience of Nikki and Jack will serve as a new narrative axis, with therapy sessions where long-buried confessions surface, arguments over power, and the more intimate, quiet moments where love is expressed without fanfare. The plot of Matt's story will examine guilt and conscience, as well as whether he is capable of forgiving himself. Genoa City will change as a result of secondary characters being compelled to take sides. Ultimately, the fire represents rebirth more than just spectacle. Buried truths emerge from ashes. Relationships are destroyed by fire and then rebuilt, sometimes intact, sometimes damaged, and always in a new way. Catastrophe is skillfully woven into character in the best soap operas, and this inferno achieves just that. The skyline of Genoa City will remain the same, while the city's interior will be rebalanced. Concluding remarks. What to look out for next. The following beats will most likely appear in the weeks following the fire, so if you're tracking episodes, pay attention to them. Forensic revelations. The fire investigation produces a conclusive hint that helps identify culprits, such as an accelerant match, a receipt, or a surveillance frame. Nikki's admission. She recalls a fragment that identifies a person she trusts, such as a voice, a word, or a scent. Matt's perspective. Upon regaining consciousness, he provides a perplexing explanation that prompts further inquiries regarding his intentions and actions that evening. A public showdown is a news conference or charity event where allegations are made public and alliances are either strengthened or broken in real time. A legal twist. subpoenas and lawsuits that force people to appear in court and record secrets. Unexpected betrayal. A moderate and trusted secondary character is exposed as the mastermind behind the mayhem, with a motivation derived from past traumas. Storylines of PTSD, survivor's guilt, and Nikki's and others' sluggish recovery are examples of emotional rehabilitation. Character-forward destruction, high drama, and the gradual revelation of the truth are all hallmarks of this plotline. It is designed to keep viewers riveted to the screen as they watch new dynamics emerge, mourn the loss of the previous status quo, and theorize in real time.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video. Jack risked his life to save Nikki. Please like and subscribe.